Command Center is where we tell you the ongoing successes on the war against terror. It will give you a panorama. In the face of an ongoing insurgency in the Northeast. Good day. You are welcome to the program Command Center, live from the Silverbird Television Abuja studios. We will give you an up-to-date information on the war against terror. My name is Amadin and I am your host on this program. The performance of the Nigerian Army has received rave reviews, especially in the dislodgement of Boko Haram from communities in the Northeast. While those following the campaign against terrorism admit the war has technically been won, in the words of the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuku Buratai, sometime last year, Boko Haram has been reduced to a gang of thieves and brigands which can only pillage soft targets. Today on the program, we have a big one in the studios. The Director of Public Relations of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Sani Usman. He's here to give us an update on the war against terror and events within the Nigerian Army. You can join the conversation by liking our Facebook page, STV Command Center, and follow us on Twitter via our Twitter handle @CommandCenter16. Stay tuned.
Terrorism is not jihad. It is cruel, wicked, and man's inhumanity to man. Both Islam and Christianity abhor the killings of the weak and defenseless. There can be no development without peace and security. See something, say something. Let's give peace a chance.
Welcome back. Like we said earlier, we have Brigadier General Sani Usman in the studios. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Amadin. Good to see you.
It's nice having you. We'll play a video which will form the basis of our discussions today. That, in the last 6 months, has become one of the most popular videos online in Nigeria. The Nigerian Army has repeatedly told the world that the war was technically over. Now, with those images appearing sometime last year, late December, and Nigerians seeing for the first time the Nigerian Army hosting the Nigerian flag at what was supposed to be the spiritual headquarters of Boko Haram. For you who has been the image maker of the army and having to tell the public what you know from very reliable sources, what was the feeling like?
Well, the feeling cannot be described adequately in words because of the immense importance, or rather significance of it, in the sense that you are aiming at something and finally you are able to achieve that objective. Naturally, it's a feeling of fulfillment and happiness also. And this time around, it is not just at individual level. You know, the very survival of our country, you know, the very survival of humanity was at stake. And the military has done marvelously well in rising at the occasion by stopping the madness of Boko Haram to the point of dislodging them not only in their spiritual headquarters, because Alagarno Forest actually was purported to be the spiritual headquarters, whereas Sambisa Forest, especially Camp Zero, was supposed to be their operational and administrative headquarters. It was finally, you know, captured, and the Boko Haram terrorists were decimated. To the point we are now, they no longer constitute the significant security problem as to were in those days.
Now, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, has repeatedly told Nigerians that the army is at its final and mop-up stage. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, just like you rightly said, the war against terrorism and insurgency militarily has been hinged on three spaces, rather, I might say. One is the fight against terrorism and insurgency, notably the Boko Haram terrorists, and their defeat. The second aspect is making room for humanitarian activities, and finally, making room for life to go back to normal, rather governance to take place. And now we have dealt decisively with the first phase, which is fighting and defeating the Boko Haram terrorists, and we have already made room for humanitarian assistance. You know, activities taking place, you know, you have been monitoring, you are abreast with what is happening, particularly in the northeastern part of the country, and of course the governance too. Some of the, you know, governing apparatus are now being put in place, and people have started going back to their places. What remains is just the remnants of the Boko Haram terrorists who transformed themselves, not in the real standard way, you know, into brigands, just like the Chief of Army Staff stated, and they now involve themselves in other criminal activities such as armed robbery and the rest of them. These are the signs of the dying embers of the Boko Haram terrorists as it were.
Now, in the last 2 years, the Nigerian army has really progressed, especially in the war. We remember once upon a time, they were saying Boko Haram was taking over places that were as big as the size of Belgium. But as of today, no single territory on Nigerian soil can be ascribed to the terrorists. Now, in the light of the efforts of the military, do you think they have received enough support from the public, especially intelligence gathering, commending? Because I've been on the field and we know what these men go through day in, day night. Do you think that support has come from the public?
Well, before I even answer that question, and of course it's a rider to the answer to the question, I must tell you that the Nigerian public, as it were, have been very supportive, have been very understanding and encouraging. But just like an Oliver Twist, you cannot always have 100% of what you have been, you know, what you expect. So I will use rather this opportunity to crave for more support, encouragement and understanding on the part of the public. More so we are at this critical stage, because information or intelligence is key to it. Whenever you see or you hear things, take for instance, you know, when they resort to soft targets, the Nigerian army came out with the idea of, you know, putting, you know, stipend for anybody who has information about anything that has to do with you know, the suicide bombing and suicide bombers. Either you come across information about likely people, you know, associated with it, or terrorists as well. To the tune of putting a price of 500,000 naira, and of course we issued our telephone numbers all over, and unfortunately we have not been getting that response yet. And we would like people to come forward and realize that the fight against terrorism and insurgency is a collective responsibility. Boko Haram as it is does not mean anything other than, you know, destructions and backwardness. Therefore, we should not be associated with it. If you hear anything, you see anything, you are supposed to. In fact, it is a civic responsibility, you know, to inform the appropriate authorities. They have been doing very well, but we need more of their support.
Now we'll go somewhere else. The Independent Board of Inquiry investigated allegations of war crimes and gross human rights abuses leveled against former military chiefs and the Nigerian Army recently submitted this report. The board, after very thorough investigations, exonerated the Nigerian Army and its officers. Let's watch this video. Let's hear from the Nigerian Army Director of Civil Public.
Well, the Chief of Civil Military
Chief
Affairs.
of Civil Military Affairs. Yes. Let's watch this video.
The report is very thorough, and it is very, very detailed in all that they have done along the various phases of their investigations. This Special Board of Inquiry is part of our responsibility as an agent of the Nigerian government to be able to be accountable, to be able to report on our activities. If there are any documents that one can bring that goes contrary to this report, let it be done. But this does not preclude the fact that this board has not done a thorough job.
Presentation, but before I go there, I want to state it on record, because recently another international pro-transparency group, the Global Amnesty Watch, also submitted its mid-term report, and the same conclusion. That organization is based in London, and it cleared the Nigerian Army of these allegations, which has been in public on online social media, of human rights abuses. Now, first of all, let's get to why. Can you tell us why the board was set up, even after an international pro-transparency group already clearing the Nigerian Army?
Well, you have to understand, actually, those that have been making the allegations seems not to have been satisfied. And if you followed what the Chief of Civil Military Affairs stated, was that there were even foreign countries that were acting on the basis of false and unjustified reports, particularly by the Amnesty International. And even at that, Amnesty International remained adamant that they still stood by their allegations, which were unsubstantiated and that were thoroughly investigated. And I would like to take you back. And if you look at it, the Nigerian Army has nothing to hide. It was on that basis that the Nigerian Army formally invited Amnesty International and opened all the books, showed them the investigation earlier carried out by the Nigerian Army Corps of Military Police. And what was their response? They said it wasn't independent, but they did not say whether the facts are correct or not correct. It's simply not independent. What is their yardstick? What is their standard of a report to be an independent? And there is no evidence whatsoever that it has been compromised. But over time, just like I mentioned, some countries decided to act on these unsubstantiated allegations. we say, okay, let us have, Nigerian Army is always responsive, have an independent and impartial investigative panel, which of course was headed by a retired Major General Ahmed Tijani Jibrin, who was at one point in his career the Director of Military Intelligence. In fact, is an investigator par excellence. Then we had representations from other government and non-governmental bodies. Take, for instance, Human Rights Commission was equally represented.
On that board?
On that board. And we have a seasoned legal practitioner who had even been an Attorney General and a Commissioner of Justice of Ekiti State, among other members, as well as retired senior officers that came from that environment that some of these allegations were made. Basically, one about the war against terrorism and insurgency and the internal security operations, particularly in southeastern part of the country, specifically in Aba and Onitsha. And this independent board of inquiry went through all the nook and crannies of all these places, interfaced with all the stakeholders, including the Boko Haram terrorists that were in detention and at various detention facilities, Maiduguri, Abuja, and elsewhere.
Lagos.
And Lagos. And they interfaced with the commissioners of police, the directors of state security services. But the most interesting thing is the issue of the alleged extrajudicial killing of people in a Catholic church. They went and met the priest and other parishioners, including the security person. And of course, the same thing with what happened in Aba. Now, the whole bottom line is that truth is always constant. Try as much as you can never embellish it. So that is why you have independent bodies like the Global Amnesty Watch coming out with their own report. Now we have a special board of independent board of inquiry coming out with the same thing. So automatically, going back to what I've said earlier, the truth is constant. You know, there are no two ways about it. And if you even go back to the Northeast, you know, the allegations they made, if you look at one of their allegations, stars on their shoulders, blood in their hands. There was an allegation that 7,000 people were extrajudiciously killed. Now, you have been to Maiduguri, you know what it was. And my argument, even at that, even with the common layman, anybody who has no knowledge about Maiduguri, you need at least 12 trailers to convey the bodies of 7,000 people. Where in Maiduguri, and at which mortuary, and at which cemetery?
I'll cut you short here because we can go all and all. I want to take another segment, but we would like to have you again on this report because I was there when he presented to the press the findings of that report, and for me as a Nigerian, I felt it's a big plus for us, especially our image in the international community. But first of all, let's just go. We'll come back there. Let's take this video. Let's take this video.
The prevailing strategic environment of the 21st century can be characterized as being volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, which requires an evolutionary approach to war fighting. It is noteworthy that terrorism and insurgency are challenges to governments all over the world as a result of its transnational nature and their asymmetric techniques. It is very germane that we train our operational level commanders to understand the dynamics and think out of the box to develop feasible strategies to defeat the adversaries and their allies. Having critically assessed the professional military education, curriculum, and the performance of officers in the field, it was discovered that there were gaps in Nigerian Army training, especially at the operational level. it was observed that there were no Army-level courses that supported officers' capacity building at the operational level, and as a consequence, Nigerian Army officers were not well grounded in operational art. It is against this background that the college is expected to develop the capacities of Nigerian Army officers in operational planning and management, as well as the development of basic strategic skills for effective application of land power. The end state for participants is to develop the critical and creative skills, knowledge, and attributes expected of senior leaders at the operational level. Most importantly, students will be taught skills to incorporate other sister agencies in the operational joint planning process. This approach will promote joint approach to war fighting.
My last question. My producer is already on me. I wanted to take this. Another cap on the feather of another feather on the cap of the Nigerian Army. Now, just tell us briefly about this war college. It was recently inaugurated by Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai.
Well, a point of correction, actually. It was inaugurated by the Honorable Minister of Defense, Mansur Muhammad Dang Ali. And it was on the 15th of June in Abuja at the temporary site of the college. Just like you have heard from the Chief of Army Staff, it is aimed at the capacity building of officers of the Nigerian Army, specifically most senior lieutenant colonels and colonels. Junior colonels, senior lieutenant colonels, junior colonels, in the art and management of war, as well as basic strategy and the rest of them.
Now, has the course commenced already? The first course 1, 2017?
Exactly, on the 15th of June 2017. Right now, I believe they are having lectures, as it were. And hopefully you might be invited to also, talk to them on, media operations and being an experienced person too.
Thank you very much, sir.
It is my pleasure too.
That was Brigadier General Sani Usman, the Director of Public Relations of the Nigerian Army. He's always very busy, and we've not been able to get him since last year because he's always on the road. And the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, is always going around the operational areas of the Nigerian Army to ensure that the Army fulfills its vision. This is the much we can take today on today's episode. You can send us your questions and comment via our Facebook page, STV Command Center, and also like our Twitter handle @CommandCenter16. Always remember, we'll be glad to keep the conversation going. And remember what General Sani Usman has just said now, that the Nigerian Army, like Oliver Twist, will be asking for more cooperation from the public and Nigerians. I remain Amadin, your amiable host. Do have a wonderful week. Command Center is where we tell you the ongoing successes on the war against terror. It will give you a panorama. In the face of an ongoing insurgency in the Northeast.